It only takes one moment. It only takes one moment for it to change. One moment. Powerful. We forget that, of course, when we're in the middle of crisis and situations, but it only takes one moment. Good morning, Celebration Spiritual Center.
Morning.
How's everybody doing?
Good.
All right, it's good to see y'all. It's good to be here. Thank you, Roy, for giving us the synopsis for our message series this month, The Wonderful World of Wisdom. We have our watch nights, which are going to be a lot of fun. I hope many of you can come over and kick it with us for a little bit, you know. Today, because Friday was the 4th of July, it was a holiday, we didn't have movie night. So Pastor Yolanda and I were thinking about what movie could we use that possibly most of you, or many of you, have already seen. And what we decided to do was to use Finding Nemo. How many people have seen Finding Nemo? How many people are aware of the story of Finding Nemo? Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. So I just want to recap for those who haven't seen it, or it might have been a while since you've seen it. Nemo, of course, is this wonderful little clownfish, and we have his father, Marlin. And Nemo is a very adventurous and curious kid, but he has a smaller fin due to an injury that happens in the beginning of the film. And so Marlin, Nemo's father, is very overprotective of his son Nemo, and is always, telling him to stay away from danger and all these other things. Well, Nemo doesn't want to listen to his father, and he goes out. And as he goes out into the deeper part of the ocean, a diver comes and captures him. And so now Nemo is taken away. Nemo is taken away, his father Marlin is losing his mind, and so he's like, I gotta go find my son. And he goes on this adventure to find his son. And so that's why it's called Finding Nemo. And so we find Marlin going through these adventures. He meets this other fish, Dory, hilariously played by Ellen DeGeneres, which we love. And, of course, eventually he finds Nemo and all is well, right? As I was thinking about this movie, there's a lot of things that we could talk about, right? One of the things that's famous from the movie, Dory's character is always saying, just keep swimming, right? And it's that idea of just keep going, even though life looks dark, you don't know what's going on, you're trying to find your son, you're encountering all of these different dangerous scenarios, but just keep swimming, it'll get better. And as you move forward towards your goal, you will reach your goal. That's a beautiful idea, but I'm not going to talk about that. I thought about, we could talk about the idea of a parent's love. Actually, Finding Nemo would be a great Father's Day message, right? To talk about the love of a parent and the love of a father, that he went through hell and high water, literally and figuratively, to find his son. It did not matter what was going on. He went to the depths of the ocean, and he was almost eaten by sharks and all of these other dangerous creatures. He went through so much to find his son. And so that's a beautiful idea when we think about the unrelenting, unconditional love of a parent and the love of a father as portrayed in Finding Nemo. But I'm not going to talk about that. We could talk about the quest. Both Marlin and Nemo were on a quest. Nemo, again, was curious and adventurous and went out in search of adventure. He gets captured, but he actually learns a lot about himself. On the other side, Marlin, who also was overprotective of his son and had so much fear and worry, also had to let go of many of his fears in order to actually find his son. And so that quest is beautiful. For those of you who know, I love Joseph Campbell. And it's the hero's journey. Textbook, hero's journey. We could talk about the hero's journey, but I'm not going to talk about that. And so what I want to talk about today is fear. A world created by fear. Now what's interesting to me is how this movie starts. It starts with seeing Marlin and his wife, Coral. And they're so happy and proud they've just moved into this brand new anemone. and they're talking about the place. They also have a bunch of kids that are on their way, right? There's like 20 eggs or something. And they're waiting for the eggs to hatch. And so they're just, proud, soon to be mom and dad. But danger shows up. And Coral, being that instinctive mother that she is, she immediately goes to protect her young. And Marlin, of course, is trying to protect his family, but he's unable to. And this fish eats or kills Coral, and all of the eggs, all of the young hatchlings except for one. That one being Nemo. But because there was an attack, that egg was actually broken slightly, and that's why Nemo's has the one bad fin. And so what's interesting to me is about here at that moment, Marlin then makes the vow to Nemo that I will protect you no matter what, that I will never let anything happen to you again. Because I've just experienced the most devastating thing in my life. My wife and my family have been taken from me, have been destroyed. And so I will never let anything like this happen again. And so everything that follows in the story hinges on that decision to create a world from fear. Now I invite you to think about your own lives. Where have you made a decision? See, something, maybe it's just me, maybe things have only happened to me in this life. Where someone did something to me, someone took something from me, someone pushed me away, someone broke my heart, someone lied to me, someone lied on me, someone abused me, whatever it may be, and I made a decision from that point forward. That because of this thing, I will never ... right? Or I will be overprotective in my life, or I will create a shell, I will create a buffer around myself, that no one or no thing can ever get in and penetrate and hurt or harm me the way I was hurt or harmed in that situation, in that scenario. Is it just me? Has anybody ever made that decision, aware that you may have made that decision in your life? And what I want you to understand as we look at the story of Finding Nemo is that is how we create a world from fear. And everything in our life then hinges on that very decision. Everything in our life hinges on that decision. And so many of us, yes, have made that decision as Marlon made. And what I've come to understand is that when we make that one choice for fear, that seems logical. Of course, it seems logical, right? Your wife and your family were attacked and taken from you. It seems logical that then, if you only have one child left, you're going to create a buffer around this child. But what's interesting to me about the story, and all of these stories, every character is dwelling within us. We're seeing ourselves in every character. And so even though Marlin was completely overprotected, Nemo didn't care. Nemo had this sense of adventure, like, I'm going out. Come on, Dad, it's time for school. It's time for school. His father didn't want him to start school because he knew going to school meant going out into all of these potential dangers and all of the things that he feared. He didn't want Nemo to experience that, and he was constantly trying to keep him back, but Nemo didn't care. And when I see Nemo, that represents the truth of our being within us that knows that we're free. That knows that whatever it may be, the hurt, harm, the danger, the abuse, whatever it may be that took place in your life, again, whoever lied on you, whoever lied about you, whatever it may be, that there's absolutely nothing that can actually harm who and what you are. Because if you know who you are, then you know that you cannot be damaged. I know you to be eternal. I know you to be limitless. I know you to be as God created you. I know you to be powerful. I know you to be courageous. Nothing in this world can change that. Nothing. And what's beautiful is we have the opportunity to experience that reality in this time-space reality, in this dimension. When you leave this dimension, you'll know. When you leave this dimension, you'll know that you're eternal, you'll know that you're limitless, you'll know that you can do nothing wrong, that you've never done anything wrong, and neither has your brother or sister. You'll know that you have this powerful tool of forgiveness that you can use to forgive yourself and forgive your brother so that you both can be free and live life freely on this earth. But I'm interested in knowing that now. I'm interested in knowing that now because that is then how we can thrive in our lives. I'm interested in knowing that now because that is then how we can do what it is that we absolutely desire to do. That is how we can live our passion. That is how we can live our purpose. That is how we can live our vision. But again, I say every choice creates momentum. And so, as surely as Marlin made the decision that I will never let this happen to you, Nemo, as surely as Marlin made the choice and the decision that because of this bad thing that happened to me, and he created this world from fear, well, the very thing he feared took place. Yes, yes. His son was taken away from him. And what I find that was interesting to me in the story as we move along, again, Nemo is taken by a diver who ends up being a dentist, and he puts Nemo in this aquarium, right? And when Nemo meets the other fish in the aquarium, Nemo starts to argue for his limitations. He starts to tell them that, oh, well, I can't really swim fast because I have a bad fin. Repeating the things that his father taught him, right? Oh my God. Repeating the things that his father taught him. He began to argue for his limitations. But what was beautiful is there was this other fish, Gil, who knew something different about life, who also had a bad fin, but did not let that so-called limitation limit him in any way, shape, or form. And as Nemo saw that, he recognized that, oh wait, I can live differently. That I don't have to live from this story that I have a bad fin. I don't have to live from this story that I'm limited. I don't have to live from this story that I can't swim as fast as everybody else. And something shifted in his mind. And I began to think about how we pick up these things in our life. What's interesting, and we talk about it all the time here, that we live in a vibrational universe and we are vibrational beings. And so as children, we're picking up the vibes, the vibration of our family from the womb. Now we look at that and we say, oh, for me, I'm proud to be a stamper, and us stampers are a certain way. That's a vibration. That has nothing to do with genes. That has nothing to do with the cells in my body. But what it has to do with, when I entered this world, there was already beliefs that my family held to be true about life, that I felt that vibration and said, oh, this is what's true. Okay, I will live life from that truth. But what I know to be true is that all of us, all of you, just like Nemo, have the opportunity to say, oh, my father believed that, but I don't believe that anymore. Oh, my grandmother believed that, but I don't believe that anymore. Now, scientists teach us that this is absolutely true, cellular memory, but I don't think they have it all figured out because they're not looking at the spiritual implications of it as well. But cellular memory is real. There are ideas, thoughts, beliefs, so-called beliefs, that are passed down from generation to generation that literally live within ourselves. And until we make a new choice, until we consciously or deliberately say, yes, I may have a bad fin, but I am not choosing to let that limit me. It may look like this in the real world. Yes, I have brown skin, but I am not choosing to allow that color which I am to limit me in any way or believe that which those outside of me are believing to be true. And that is the only way that anything can be shifted in your life. You are as God created you. No one can speak to your life experience, to who and what you are, except you. And at any point that you're living, that we're living from someone else's idea of who and what we are, we're actually, I hate to use this word, but we're living in a form of slavery. I have to use that word because that's what's coming to me. We're enslaved to some other belief. We're not living in our power. Right? We're a victim, if you will, to someone else's belief because we're no longer living in our power. But are you ready to decide for yourself who and what you are? Are you ready to live for yourself from who and what you are? Because the truth is here. You can accept it or you can reject it. That's what Nemo did. Yes, his father was a huge influence on his life. So much so that we find Nemo arguing for his limitations. But life brought him something that allowed him to make a choice, make a decision. That yes, my father Marlon, I love him, but I believe that I'm courageous. I don't love Marlon, I don't love my father any less, but I'm choosing to believe that I'm strong. I'm choosing to believe that I'm wise, that I can come up with ideas and figure things out to escape. It's very, very interesting to me. And so I was thinking about this idea of how our parents, or those in our lives, it could be any guardian, so to speak, in our lives, that we acquire these so-called truths and we begin to live from them, and many times we never question them. And I thought about that perspective when we think about living from the past, because I'm sure all of you, I know you're powerful metaphysicians, I see you, I watch you thriving in your lives, that you understand that actually living from the past is not a good idea. Yes, yes. Right? We understand that the past is actually not real, depending on which teacher or text you would look at, that the past is an illusion, and it really has no power, right? That anytime we're living from the past, we're recreating the past in the now, right? And, it's an interesting idea, but I want to take it a little deeper, Because again, as I know you're powerful people, I know that you're spiritual people, I know that you're well-read and you're digging into deeper things, and so I'm sure that many of you are even familiar with past lives, which is interesting. Past lives are real and true, right? There's overwhelming evidence to suggest that past lives are real or true, but I've found that those of us who are a little deeper in spiritual knowledge have then argued for our limitations because of a past. Hear this? Because this has nothing to do with whether past lives are real. That's cool. You were a soldier back in the Civil War and this happened and that. Wonderful. But at any point that you are letting that story dictate your now, you are living as a victim to that story. You are letting that story drive your now. Now is all that exists. And so yes, it's helpful. Yes, it's useful. Yes, it's cool information. Yes, it's nice to talk about at parties. But at any point that we're letting that dictate who and what we are now, we've argued for our limitations yet again. Because there's only now. The past happened. Wonderful. There's only now. And what are we doing now? I was reminded of a teacher I love, Paramhansa Yogananda, and I've shared this idea here. I think it's so powerful. He talks about divine memory. And Yogananda says that memory is actually a spiritual gift. It's a spiritual tool. If you think about it, it really is a gift. Think about the ways if a song comes on from back when you were in high school, it transports you right back to that time period. You can smell everything. You can think about the person you had a crush on and all of these things, right? Everything comes back crystal clear. That's how powerful your memory is. You can feel it in your body even. It's like it's happening now. Similarly, think about when you think about somebody that did something wrong to you or lied about you or any of those scenarios, right? And how if you start talking about it, it starts turning and you can get mad all over again, even though it happened in 1972. That's how powerful memory is. It's a divine gift. And what Yogananda it encourages us that because our memory is a divine gift, at any point that we're using it to abuse ourselves, at any point that we're using it to do anything other than either see there was a lesson and grow from it, or to simply go back and bask in that reality, bask in that joy, which is a spiritual tool in and of itself. Many times we can feel frustrated, we can feel upset about something that's happening in our now. You can distract yourself by going back to a joyful memory. Because then your cells in your body begin to respond to that. Your emotions respond to that. And then your internal emotional guidance system, as Abraham Hicks would say, then responds to that. And then you begin to attract more joyous thoughts and more joyous thoughts. So you can use the past to enhance your now. Beautiful. But don't use that divine gift of memory to disrupt your now. Or again, to argue for your limitations. So I thought about two things here, that there were valuable lessons that Marlin and Nemo learned. Marlin learned this. He learned to trust, and he learned to let go. And this is how we can then begin to change the story, change this idea of creating a world from fear. Trust. Another word I would use is allow. Abraham Hicks talks a lot about the law of allowing. That there's a flow. There's a flow to life, and we don't always understand it, right? Things happen. Sometimes things are taken away from us, but we don't recognize in the moment that that very act, that very moment of something being taken away was actually opening a door to something else. And you can't know that until you've experienced it. But when you think back over your life, this is the wisdom in the story of Joseph, who of course was thrown into captivity by his jealous brothers, and he was lied on. Potiphar's wife accused him of rape. All of these things happened. But he ended up becoming the second in command to Pharaoh. And when it came time for him to forgive his brothers, and he had that encounter, he forgave them and said, what you meant for evil, God intended for good. God used the very evil thing, being thrown into captivity, and that very act is the thing, the part of the trajectory that then put me as second in command to Pharaoh. What's even more interesting about that story, as we are in the summer, as we are in Cancer, we're in the time of Joseph being the sun at its height. That's what this moment is about. That moment where, again, just as we in winter, experienced the darkest night ever in winter. And at that moment in time, I think about it all the time. At that moment in time, if you came to the earth for the first time, no one would believe you if you said that you're going to experience the weather and the sunlight and as much of the sunlight as we have now in summer. No one would believe you. All the frozen ground and all of the snow that we had this past winter, they would not believe you. But the promise of the sun is the promise of life itself. That there's always a shift. Again, in one moment, life can change. But we have to learn to trust that. Just as we trust that when we wake up, there's air to breathe, and I don't have to fight anybody for it. I don't even have to look cute enough for it. I don't have to do any of those things, right? It doesn't matter what I have on. It doesn't matter if I have a degree, if I don't have a degree. None of that matters. Because the universe, I just want to clue you in, the universe is neither prejudiced nor preferential. Because, I mean, imagine if we had to fight for air. Imagine if we had to work for air. If we had to prove our worthiness in order to breathe. Now, we treat everything else in life that way. But I'm here to tell you that allowing and trusting is just like breathing in the air. And so then, Marlon had to learn to let go. He had to learn what we all have to learn, that there is something greater that we are a part of, that is operating in, through, and as us and on our behalf at all times. And so, in your life, there's a Nemo in your life, or a part of your life, something that you feel like is precious and I need to take care of, and I don't know if I can let it out. And it might, if it crosses the street, it might get hit. Whatever that thing is in your life, know that there is something greater that is actually protecting that. And that is why you can trust. That is why you can know it is protected. Pastor Yolanda and I were talking about it recently. We're talking about this idea of trust. And, you know, being able to trust life. Being able to trust that you can walk down the street and not get hit by a car. Or we get on the subway, we get on the bus. We put trust in so many things and don't think about it, right? But know that when we're actually trusting, what are we trusting in? I can trust in the bus driver because I trust in all trust. I know I trust that I'm safe at all times because I know that I live, move, and have my being in safety. And so that is why we're able to trust and let go. So the children in your life, your dreams, your vision, your passion, you're just yourself. Because again, someone may have hurt or harmed you. Someone may have done something terrible to you. And hear this, I don't want to diminish what happened. What happened, happened. I can't diminish that, right? We also cannot change that. But what I know is that if you allow what happened into your now will continue to be what happened. Does that make sense? Yes. And so that is why we must begin to change the story, to speak a new story, to live from a different place in our now. So what did Nemo learn? Well, Nemo learned to trust himself. Because again, as I said, his father Marlon was telling him a few things, right? And we find Nemo arguing for his limitations at a point in the story, but then he had a shift. And what I know to be true, we can look, even as we look and come to CSC, nobody, not me, not Pastor Yolanda, not a book, not any other spiritual teacher can tell you about you. Because the truth of your being, anything that you find, anything that you read is just your mirror speaking back to you. That's all it is. I'm you speaking to you right now. That's all it is. There's no amount of truth that I can amass that then I give to you and now now you're enlightened in some way. No. The truth has been, shall always be within you. And at a certain point in our life, we have to make a decision, and I believe that we all come to that point. When you just decide for yourself that I'm going to live according to what I believe to be true, even when I don't see it outside of myself. Think about all of the people that we celebrate. Think about our heroes. Think about greatness as it happens on the earth. Most of those people did not see what they felt within them. And they had to trust what they felt within them, what they desired within them, no matter what. I love to think about those who were enslaved in this country. It fascinates me because when I look at those ancestors, my ancestors, and recognize that there was nothing outside of them that affirmed their humanness. There was nothing outside of them that affirmed that they were free. Some had been born in Africa, in freedom, which I love. We look at the story of Kunta Kinte. We understand that Kunta Kinte knew what freedom was, and so he was looking for freedom because he had been free. 12 years a slave, same story. But when you think about those who were born in bondage but still desired freedom, there was nothing that taught them about freedom. They didn't have an experience of freedom. They didn't know what it was, but they knew what it was within themselves. That is the place that we must get to in our lives. That is how we shift and change and create the life that we want from that place. We can look at inventors. Thomas Edison, the Wright brothers. The idea of flight was absurd at the time. But they believed something to be true. They believed something to be possible, although there was prevailing wisdom outside of them that said something else. You know, it's one of the beautiful things for me, even when we consider science and look at science, that science is open to new ideas, right? We have theories, we have ideas that have been proven to be true to a point. But science is all about questioning. Questioning those assumptions, questioning those theories, and continuing to look again and to look deeper. And I believe that in our spiritual lives, we must begin to do the same thing. We must begin to question. I think I shared this sometime before. I was thinking about my theology professor, Professor Whitney, who used to say that what we're doing as theologians, what we're doing is we're believing, knowing that all the data isn't in. And so we hold our beliefs and we live from that place, but we recognize that when we get new data, we shift. Because it doesn't make sense to do otherwise. I mean, there was a time in this world, in this life, where you could not just pick up a device and call anyone in the world wirelessly. Right? Nobody believed that to be true. But once it came into being and it came to be true, then we all accepted that as reality and began to live from that belief. But so often in our lives, even as we can see examples of those who may have been hurt, harmed, or abused and overcome that situation, that's showing us possibility. That's showing that, oh wait, okay, this happened to me, but I can be healed just like they can be healed. Oh, this happened to me, this happened to them, this happened to me, it's the same thing. Oh, I can forgive just like they can forgive, and I can thrive. Oh, I don't actually have to live according to this story that I am ... or my mother was ... or my father was ... or my ancestors were ... Fill in the blanks, whatever that thing is for you, right? And we can begin to live and believe from another place. And so similarly, when we're talking about trusting ourselves, the interesting thing that Nemo really had to learn was that you can't listen to anyone other than yourself, even his father, which is interesting. I mean, I don't know about you all. You know, I love my family. I love the influence that my family has had on me. There are so many positive and beautiful attributes that I gained from being born in the family that I was born into. But yet I recognize that there are limiting beliefs that my family held about life. Now, am I shaming my family by taking on a different belief? Am I calling them wrong by taking on a different belief? No. Because what's interesting about fear, when we think about this idea of a world created by fear, you know, those fears can look different. You know, sometimes it's a fear of danger itself, right? Like fear that something could happen to my physical being, and so I'm going to make a choice to avoid that scenario. But what I found is that many times, and again, maybe it's just me, a lot of times that fear can even be about other people's opinions, right? Well, I'm going to stay small or just do it kind of this way because then I don't really rub people the wrong way. You know, yeah, they might be able to accept it if I do it this way. So I'll kind of get part of what I want, but I'll give them all of what they want. See, that's what fear does. And that doesn't even feel good, does it? But that's the agreement that we're making when we create our world from fear, when we make decisions from fear. And so I have a simple question. As we look at the story of finding Nemo, as we look at the fear that Marlin possessed, this fear that he passed on to his son, but his son shows us ourselves, our powerful selves, our courageous, our adventurous, our curious selves. He made a choice that, yes, I love my father. I love him so much. I want to see him again. I want to get back to him. Right? Nemo wasn't in this place, and many of us can get to this place. God knows I was there at one point where I had knowledge. I knew something, and so now I thought that I was better than some others, right? Oh, they don't get it. You know, they're on that low vibration. They don't get stuff, right? But what's interesting to me is when we see that when we're operating from unconditional love, as Nemo really was, it wasn't about being mad at his father, because he went to that place. He actually said, I hate you, to his father initially. Because it was that thing that was keeping him from being more of who and what he is. And we've been there, right? When you feel crushed, when you feel stifled, when you feel boxed in, and you want to just fight against whatever's happening, right? That's part of the process, right? Moving through that frustration, through anger to frustration and irritation, right? To a sense of pride. But we must keep moving up that scale. David Hawkins talks about the scale of power. That we must ultimately move to the level of 200, to the level of love. And when we move to that space, as we see in Nemo, he loved his father unconditionally, but he was clear about who he was. Even after he found his father was still going back to that old story. No, Nemo, you can't do this. He's like, Dad, I got this. You got to trust me. I know how to save us all. And he did. It was a brilliant idea. He saved them all. And Marlon had to take a step back and say, wow, my son is amazing. And what I'm inviting you all to think about and to do, anywhere where you're holding those fearful thoughts, where you're holding those fearful beliefs and creating from those places, that choice that you made has created momentum, right? More reasons to be in fear have shown up because you created it, right? Step back and let that piece of you, that more courageous part of you, that piece that is represented by Neo, that adventurous piece, that part of you that even though it may not look like it's supposed to succeed, knows that it can succeed anyway. Yes. That part of you that is wise and all-knowing. That part of you that is tapped into absolute genius. Yes. That part of you that can get out of any situation even when it seems hopeless, dark, and dim. That part of you that is tapped into new ideas. That is a world created by love. That is a world created by power. That is a world created by freedom. I'm inviting everyone to stand in this moment. And we remember the truth of who and what we are. I'm so grateful for these stories that show us all about ourselves, that show us what our fear looks like painted on the screen, that shows us what our power looks like painted on the screen, that shows us what our courageousness looks like painted on the screen, that shows us what fearlessness looks like painted on the screen. Thank you, God, for the mirror. But what I'm also interested in, I don't need to see it anymore to know that I can be it. What I know to be true is that there's a fire within each and every one of you. A fire of passion, a fire of desire, a fire of new ideas, a fire of wanting to expand and grow in new and more powerful and profound ways. It is speaking to you now. And it is time. We are choosing to live from it. So, Mother, Father, God, we are just grateful and thankful for this opportunity to look at what a world created by fear looks like, so that we can turn our attention away and decide to create a world from love. And we know that a world from love is a world that is created that allows us to live in freedom. We know that a world that is created from love is a world that allows us to live in our inner strength. We know that a world that is created from love is a world that allows us to live from a place of possibility, new possibility each and every day. I'm hearing the words of the song, morning by morning, new mercies we see, morning by morning, new ideas we receive, morning by morning, new blessings we receive, morning by morning, new riches we receive, morning by morning, new prosperity we receive. We are choosing to stand in that reality today. That is the world created by love. We know that we have a choice today to choose the path of love or choose the path of fear. But we have seen where the path of fear goes. We have experienced what the path of fear brings us. And as we recognize that we are powerful co-creators of our very lives, we are now choosing to co-create from unconditional absolute love. We are choosing now to co-create from absolute unconditional joy. We are choosing now to co-create from the idea that we remain as God created us. We are choosing to co-create from this idea that there is no thing, there is no circumstance, there is no challenge, there is no difficulty that can overcome us. for we remain unharmed. We recognize that our spiritual selves are greater than the self that we experience here on the earth. Yes, we experience ourselves as flesh and blood beings, but there is more than that is operating in, through, and as us. We turn our attention to the more that we are. And as we turn our attention to that, we begin to experience more of ourselves. As we turn our attention to that, we expand in new and more profound ways. As we turn our attention to that, we experience our brilliance. As we turn our attention to that, we experience just how amazing and dazzling we are. Oh, I am so grateful for these lights, the light of the world that is here, present in this room and within the sound of my voice. I know their greatness. I know their power. I know their strength. I know the love. I feel the love. The vibration of love that is vibrating in, through, and as them now. And I call it forth. I call it to rise higher. Whatever experience of expanded love you experience as your life now, there is more. And I call it forth. Whatever experience of prosperity you are experiencing in and as your life right now, there is more. And I call it forth. Whatever experience of joy that you are experiencing in your life now, there is more. And I call it forth. We recognize that we are here to live an expanded life and an expanding life. I am so grateful for that knowledge. I am so grateful for that knowledge. I am so grateful for that truth. And so, as we release these words now back into you, back into cause, back into the how, knowing that we don't have to figure it out, but we allow you to do your work magnificently, we stand in pure gratitude and appreciation. And from that place, we lift up our voices and we say, Amen.
Amen.
Ashe.
Ashe.
And so it is.
And so it is.